Welcome to Capitol Preview, a weekly bipartisan discussion with Iowa legislators about the key issues facing our state. Brought to you by Mediacom.
Good morning and welcome to another segment of Capitol Preview. I'm Bill Peard. I'll be your host this morning. Our guest today on Capitol Preview is Senator Matt McCoy, Democrat from Des Moines. Matt.
Thanks for having me today, Bill.
Thanks for being here. I'm just going to jump in. You know, you're a busy man. We see you a lot in the news. I think you have some pretty good issues that you're championing, and so I'm going to just start off by the educational funding. If you kind of want to go through that.
Well, thanks, Bill. This has been a real issue of contention between the House and the Senate this year. And one of the things that we're finding is that there's just very little room for compromise. The House came in with a proposal for K12 Education, which is where we set the allowable growth. And allowable growth is what we provide school districts new money, new dollars that can be used for textbooks and classroom teachers and instructors, and cost of living increases for all of those classes of people that work for our schools. And so ultimately they came in at 1.75%. And obviously most schools were screaming, we can't do this for under 4%. Mm-hmm. The Senate recognizes that it was a tight budget year and we couldn't do 6%, so we came in at 4%. And ultimately we had a lot of back and forth in hopes that we could come up with a compromise. And we stalled. The Senate came in with a proposal to cut the difference in half, which was 2.62.5%. Mm-hmm. And that would have been exactly halfway between the 1.75 and the 4%. That would have given our schools enough money to operate. Right now, that proposal has been rejected by the House. So we're still in a deadlock in terms of setting the allowable growth for schools, which puts us, of course, outside of the law. Mm-hmm. And we're required by law to set the allowable growth within 30 days of the governor delivering his budget. So we feel very strongly that education is underfunded in our state with this 1.75% proposal by the House, and we're going to stay and fight.
How is that going to, in your opinion, Senator, how are you going to break that deadlock?
You know, it's really important that we break the deadlock because this debate talks about the universal number of how we deal with the remainder of the budget. Mm-hmm. Education is our top priority, so we always set that first. Mm-hmm. And then what's left over is what we spend on human services and what we spend on environment and other key programs in the state. So until we get a compromise of some type on education and get agreement on education, it makes it very difficult to put a budget together. So the budget that we're presenting to the House is an actual budget that will be at $7.3 billion, and that is the governor's number. So we're right in line with where the governor was, and the Senate Democrats and the governor are on the same page. The House is $166 million below the governor's spending level. And of course, I think it's important to note when we talk about the overall budget, the Senate version of the budget is a very responsible budget. The governor's version is a very responsible budget. We spend 97% of new revenue that comes into the state, all revenue that comes into the state. Mm-hmm. That allows us to stay below our 99% spending limitation. We're a full 2 points below that. And in addition, we maintain our money in our reserve fund at about $700 million, which is our emergency reserve fund, which is in the bank. Mm-hmm. We only get into it if there's an economic emergency. Mm-hmm. And so overall, I think we're in a very, very healthy position as a state, and we should invest in education.
Is there a reason why, and maybe I missed it, is there a reason why the House is cutting that much below what the Senate?
So the speculation is that the House would like to go in and do income tax cuts next year during an election year. And so they're saving the money for income tax cuts for fat cats. And we think that's a bad idea. We think that we haven't yet fully absorbed the cost of doing a 10% commercial property tax cut. And this year, our portion of that was $133 million. So we think waiting to cut income taxes next year and holding on to all this additional money that should be spent on schools and educating our kids ought to be spent on schools and educating our kids and not taking care of the top 10% of income earners in the state.
Yep, fair enough. Another big issue that is being discussed up there and seems to be heavily involved with both sides is the privatization of Medicaid.
Yes.
And you want to kind of run through that a little bit? And
yes.
Set the scenario for that?
So in Iowa, we have about 500,000 Iowans that depend on Medicaid in some form or another. And these are our most vulnerable people. These are our most vulnerable citizens. Many of them are children. Many of them have physical and mental challenges. And so what the governor's proposing is that we close Medicaid enterprises as we know it, and we outsource that whole project to an outsourced company that would come in from another state and set up in Iowa and then create their own network of providers and their own reimbursement policies and levels, and that they would provide services for these most vulnerable citizens. The governor's proposing that we do this by instituting executive order that he's issuing to do this, and that he's claiming we'll have $50 million of savings in the first 6 months of this implementation. And we say, at what cost, Governor? At what cost to these vulnerable Iowans? So the differences right now are that the Senate Democrats said, we'll go along with you, Governor, but we want an oversight bill, and we want that oversight bill to measure the metrics of how are we caring for these Iowans, how long does it take for them to get the services that they're needing, and what is the quality of the services that they're needing, and measure this for the first 18 months of implementation. That bill passed the Senate and is sitting in the House, and the House looks like they're not going to take up the oversight bill to provide oversight and protection of this outsourcing of Medicaid enterprises. So it's a huge issue. Vulnerable Iowans' lives are at stake, and we believe that we should have a say in how this is done. And ultimately, this is something that the governor is betting his political fortune on by moving this direction without any input from the House or Senate. He's doing this on his own. And so if these vulnerable Iowans are denied the services they need, ultimately this could be a disaster for the governor.
Better him than me, taking
That's
that kind of a risk.
That's right.
So another one is, I mean, we've kind of hit on a lot of big ones that seem to be at the forefront of what's going on up there. The other one would have to talk about is medical cannabis. I mean, you can kind of give us an update on that situation. I know you guys passed a bill last year,
right?
Signed into law, but it has the mechanism to how it works seemed to be the
right. So last year we passed a bill that would have helped children that have these multiple seizures every day. These are children that it's been proven can be helped by cannabis oil, and obviously this cannabis oil has a very low THC content, so it's not something that one could use to get intoxicated or high. The current bill that we have in the Senate and passed out of the Senate expands the use of medical cannabis to 10 conditions in the state: cancer, glaucoma, HIV/AIDS, a lot of conditions which have been proven medically to improve a person's medical condition or health by use of cannabis oil or cannabis as a edible or plant substance. So that bill is in the House, and the House has indicated that they're not going to take that bill up. They're not even going to look at that bill. And the problem we have is the federal government has failed to act on this issue. And so the drugs that we have at Medicaid pharmacy or Walgreens pharmacy are far more potent than cannabis oil or cannabis as a product. But because the FDA hasn't approved this, pharmacies can't dispense a medical marijuana or a cannabis. And so there's no supply or system or network for growing and distributing this product. And so what this would allow Iowa to do is to create its own system to distribute, grow, and maintain this product in some kind of medical needy fashion where a doctor certifies that the person's condition qualifies them for this cannabis oil. Yesterday on the Senate floor, Senator Bolcom, the chief sponsor of this legislation, said that he believes the House has a moral obligation to pass this legislation to help sick Iowans. And as I look into the eyes of the mothers and fathers with these children that need the cannabis oil to prevent the seizures and to prevent the illness that their child is suffering from, I think it is a moral imperative that we move forward with that.
Very good. I agree. The next project that I want to talk about is the IWIL program, and maybe you want to kind of explain that to our viewers, what the IWIL means and
Sure.
where we're going with that.
So as a state, we don't have oceans, we don't have mountains, and we don't have a lot of lakes. But what we do have is we do have a natural environment that is conducive to outdoor recreation. Bicycle trails have been very popular in all of our communities. And one of the things that Iowans said is we care deeply about clean water and the quality of our environment. And so when Iowa was asked to vote on a referendum which said the next time the state raises the sales tax, will you support 3/8 cents of that tax going towards the environment? That would create a statewide fund of $150 million every single year to clean up our water, to clean up our parks, to improve our outdoor recreation, our camping and our boating and our fishing, wildlife, and really improve the environment that we all treasure in Iowa. And that was passed by 67% of Iowans. 67% of Iowans said, yes, we'll support this tax increase, and yes, we want it to go to those things. So the Land and Legacy project is an effort to do that. The Senate has the bill. It moved out of Ways and Means Subcommittee yesterday. We hope to pass it out of the Senate this year, and we hope to send a strong message to Iowans that we're listening to their needs about cleaning up the environment, getting after clean water, and passing this initiative to improve the quality of life in our state.
It's a great goal.
It is a great goal.
For Iowa to be known as that.
Yes.
Senator, we're just about out of time, but briefly, very briefly, we want to talk about the fireworks bill
right.
that is up there.
So we have a bill before the legislature this year. It's been passed in the House. It's in the Senate. It's in our Ways and Means Committee, moving out of Ways and Means likely. And it will allow for fireworks during the 4th of July. I personally have opposed that bill. I think it's bad for Iowa. I think it messes up our environment, leaves a lot of debris in the wake of our natural environment, and also puts property and casualty of our infrastructure at risk, and I think also, from what Iowans say, the dogs get disturbed by it. It disturbs animals and puts animals in a bad place. So ultimately, I think that it's bad policy for the state. I predict it will pass the legislature despite my objections.
Very good. Thank you, Senator. Senator Matt McCoy, Democrat from Des Moines, thank you for joining us this morning. And thank you for joining us on another segment of Capitol Preview.